Okay, welcome. If you can hear me, or hear me okay, and welcome to the November Speakers Bureau. I don't know when the Speakers Bureau meetings come on the first of the month. That really seems to jump on me in a hurry. But we are here. We have a full complement of speakers. We are in good shape. Great speakers, all three. We have. I want first of all try to make sure I make some thank yous. So I don't forget. I want to thank the VA Hospital for allowing us to use their facility. Thank Rob Gunneman, who does all this hard work behind the scenes and making sure that this happens. Sharon Kenty for putting in publicity. Of course, thank the district for continuing to support Speakers Bureau. And thank the audience, which is the most important thing. Without having the audience, our speakers or just talk to themselves. And I think some of them do that from time to time.
Yes, yes.
I know I've said for years that some of my most intelligent carried on conversations were when I was just talking to myself. So anyway, that's about the way it works. We have as we said, we have a full program, and this next speaker, we were old buddies, and so he's been around 50 years in Toastmasters, and I've been around that almost that long, or about that long too. And just now I thought of something we did not too long ago. We went and saw the longest burning light bulb in the world. And it's been burning since 1901, before the Wright brothers flew their airplane.
Oh.
And we went and saw this. We were welcomed so much in Livermore, California, welcomed by the local firemen from the fire station. And I only bring that up because of my friend over here, Ralph Rivers, has been around a long time. But if you can live as long as that light bulb, that's the goal.
Let there be light.
I think we're both shooting for, and his speech is especially appropriate on that lead-in topic, because his speech topic is from cabbage to Christ. He's had a few in the last few months, a few close calls when it comes to health issues. We had missed him for a month or two, but he's a qualified speaker, and you may remember him when he gave this stirring rendition of the original, the entirety. I'd never heard it before. Before I heard him give it, the entirety of the speech, I Have a Dream speech, the Martin Luther King speech. He did that here, I think, in January. So, and he's done that at a few Kiwanis clubs and that sort of thing. So I want you to give a good welcome to our next speaker, from Cabbage to Christ, the Reverend Ralph Rivers.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want you to know that the shortest line between two lives is a hard line. Wonderful and privileged qualified speakers, all of my friends and cast of thousands. I just want to tell you something that I've discovered. I've discovered that life is more than a gift. It's a splendor of giving. In March 18th, 2022, I was going to my bedroom to get ready to go down a few blocks and pick me up a McDonald's sundae. And between going down the hallway to my bedroom and sitting on the bed, I discovered that things weren't good with my heart. I felt a great pressure in my chest. And I told my wife, Versi, I said, hon, I think maybe you should take me down to the hospital. Then in second thought, I thought better. I said, no, call 911. Well, 911 got there, and it soon became apparent that I was having a heart attack. Now, I'm going to tell you something about a heart attack. It makes you realize that life is something that you really want to have. Now, I know that a lot of people really say, well, of course you want to have life, and you want to have it more abundantly. But I'm going to tell you something. You haven't really enjoyed life until you understand that it might cease at any moment. I remember waking up in the hospital, laying in the bed, and all of these monitors were flashing, and all these people were running around. And when I woke up, the first thing that I heard was, I want to know how our cabbage is doing. And I thought about it. I said, now I'm in the hospital or I am in the cafeteria. Which one is that? But I lay there a little while longer, and it may have been a day or two later that I woke up again, and they were still talking about cabbage. I found out that cabbage stands for coronary artery bypass graft. And that meant that they had to go inside my heart and take a myriad of surgical instruments and a team of doctors and repair that shattered vessel. You know what I understood at that moment as I came through that operation that was life-threatening? I discovered that there was a God. Now, I don't want you to make any misapprehensions about my profession, because I am a certified and ordained minister. And talking about God is something I do not only for a living, but for a pleasure. But it wasn't until that moment that I realized that Christ had got me through, that Christ was there as I lay there, and he gave me the assurance that I would be there again. I'm not going to preach at you today because many of us might have a different thing that we call God. But we all know, without a shadow or beginning of a doubt, that there is a God. I once had a friend that was in the armed forces with me, and he professed that he did not believe in God. And one day, we were out, and a friend about 10 paces in front of us stepped on a landmine, blew himself to kingdom come. And the first thing out of that atheist's mouth was, "Oh God!" I've understood many things in my life, but one of them is that time can be an agony. I remember convalescing in the hospital, and I could almost call the names of each surgeon and attendant and nurse that took care of me. They were a tremendous crew, dedicated to saving life, tireless in their efforts, and so reassuring that I really felt like I was in the hands of not only capable people, but people that cared. But at night, I couldn't sleep. And every minute became an hour. And every hour became a day. I sit and watch the secondhand sweep, and it looked like it was moving so slow that it was caught in molasses. And I started to think, will this night ever end? Then I got another notion. So what if the night does end? And I'm not with it. You know, I thought about many things, and you would think that knowing that Christ was with me, that I would think about wonderful, happy things. But when you're stretched out on that lifeline and it's becoming thin, you start to wonder, is it even worth living? And I thought of this little poem. Razors pain you, rivers are damp, acid stain you, and drugs cause cramps. Guns aren't lawful and nooses give. Gas smells awful, you might as well live. And from that moment, I started to live. I started to realize the great opportunity that I had been given, an opportunity that was met with understanding that it was not given to everyone. There are little children that did not make the night through in that hospital. There were parents that came with hope to see them through, and they didn't make the dawn. So who am I to give up on life when Christ has assured me that he had something else for me to do? So I worked and I sweat and I started thinking that I'm going to do something with this opportunity that he had given me. I remember a poem called Invictus that says, out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. I started to realize that it was the soul of life and God's power to enliven that soul that had brought me that far and was going to take me farther. Oh, I got out of the hospital and I took a renewed interest in exercise. And boy, did I exercise. I made sure that 30 hours a day, 5 days a week, 150 hours in the week that I was exercising. And man, I felt good until March the 19th, 2023. And I was exercising, I felt something tear in my left arm. And I thought, that can't be good. And I asked once again to be taken to the hospital to find out that I had torn my coronary artery. I had torn that artery that connects the heart to life. It was remarkable that they could even repair it. So, I want to let you guys know something. Life is worth living. Since then, I've had a renewed and a vigorous interest in what the secret and the components of life are all about. And I found out that, first of all, I was energized by the friends that I didn't know loved me. You heard Tom mention that we've had many years together. Tom and I once ran for the Riverside Community College Board of Trustees. And I actually beat him, but I didn't beat Mark Tucano. And when we started to gather our thoughts together, it wasn't so long before I found out that Tom was one of my greatest friends. Tom and Randy Powell and so many others. The problem about naming names is you're going to forget someone if you keep on. So I don't want to forget anybody. I will say that everyone that I knew in Toastmasters either called me up, tried to pay a visit, or send me a card. And that connection to friends made me realize how important it was that I stay here. Because apparently if I left, I'd be missed. Now I want to tell you something else before I go too far. They say that every man has another half. And my other half is named Versie. I'm going to spell it out for you because I want you to remember her name. Versie. We've been married now 56 years. And I tell you, that lady is more than a saint. She is our affirmation of womanhood. She is the joy in my life. Her love has kept me warm when I got cold. She's fed me when I couldn't lift my hand. I could tell you a lot of other things she did, but I don't want to embarrass myself. All I can tell you is that without her, I would be half of who I am now. So, driving through life, there's a great engine that pulls us ahead. And that engine is called hope. Hope is what makes me get up every morning. Hope is what gives the splendor to the morning sun. Hope is what makes me look beyond the break in the intelligence of man and to see the great purpose that God wants us to fulfill. Hope is what I hear when I hear a baby cry, because that child could be the catalyst or the cure for saving us through making a new diagnosis that eradicates cancer. That child could be the one that is able to grasp someone's hand and lead them to tomorrow. So my hope is not based upon my next second's life. My hope is based upon that child's life. That child that I know will reach ahead beyond my diminishing years and be able to bring a new burst of freedom to a life that needs a lot of flowers. And I look out and I see things that I never saw before. I see the tiny beating wings of a hummingbird and how they beat thousands of times in a second. And I realize that a second is an eternity to something that small. But it changes the world. Each and every second that goes by our clock changes the world imperceptibly. My hope is in the springtime and the flowers that grow. My hope is in the laughter and the smile of those that care enough to keep on going. My hope is looking beyond war and understanding that there can be a great burst of peace within this world, that one day will eradicate all of the mumbling and grumbling and sniping and biting that seems to be in vogue in certain places. So at last, it was hope that brought me back. It was hope that gave me a peace that passes all understanding. A peace that makes me understand that no matter what happens, no matter how much turmoil grips our country or our world, that there is a God. And I want you all to know that's how I went from cabbage to Christ. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Right. Thank you, Ralph. Don't have anybody sitting together and have a microphone out here.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you know what? I was just keeping it.
Microphone, you take over, right?
Thank you.
Somebody.
All right. Yeah, I know. I just don't.
I have been privileged for the last 15 years to be in the same club, my home club at 797 on a Saturday morning, to listen to Ralph's speech, and we have grown together, and I truly would put him in this extremely small handful of men that I love in this world, because from vastly different backgrounds, I mean, could not be farther apart in terms of the way we grew up in the world, to know each other. That's one thing that Toastmasters does. You go to a club and you begin to learn about what's in the soul and the heart of people in your club. And I always said that. It was my theme when I was district governor 12 years ago, whatever it was welcome to our Toastmaster family. And that is what Toastmasters can do, is bring people together of vastly different thoughts and ideas and political perspectives and everything else, and still have a caring for each other. So thank you so much for that presentation. And You're going to keep hope alive, right, with that. So wonderful job. Okay, we have more program than that. And before I get any further, I do want to ask Ralph, you're still planning on speaking in December, correct? I didn't hear anything.
Yes, I am.
That's a yes. Okay, so we have the person. We'll tell you more about December's program in a bit, but he's going to be going for his qualified speaker status in December. So you make sure you don't want to. We don't want anyone to miss that, especially our qualified speakers who are the ones who need to vote. Our second speaker had visited us last month, and she is from traveling, speaking, and she had to stay up in the middle of the night to do this speech because she's from. My wife will correct me if I'm wrong, or someone will. I think she's speaking from Montreal, and she was last year's number 3 in the World Championship of Public Speaking. And when we chatted about what she might talk about, she's probably going to give us the speech that got her to the big stage. But basically, her speech is to make your speech have impact. And my feeling with her was that this is the perfect time, since this spring, our district contest will be international, and it will be table topics, if I'm not mistaken. And so, but international, if you are preparing to get on that world stage and go all the way to the world championship, or at least make some good steps in that direction, as Ralph has been, he's been a district international winner from our district in the past. If you are thinking about doing that, I would pay very close attention to her. And she did promise me to give you time to ask questions if you have questions at home or in the room. And speaking of in the room, I want to again thank you. I know that people have really busy schedules, and that's one of the reasons that we don't have some of the people here. There are people that have clubs meet on Wednesday night. Again, to thank Ralph for being here. He usually is spending his Wednesday night working with young people, and if we certainly need that positive influence in teenagers' lives and young people's lives. And so he's an inspiration to them, I'm sure, which is part of the reason we don't often see him. I know Daryl Zeller and Sandy Emilino, numbers of people have meetings that interfere, and they do. Hopefully they'll come back and see us on Zoom, since we're also on Zoom. Now to our second speaker, Mariam Ghani, who, as I said, spoke last time. And she is going to give you some information and give you a speech on how to make an impact with your presentation. Mariam.
Thank you so much.
Mute my audio.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. If we have time, I was thinking, since I wanted to keep this just about my journey short and sweet, if I don't finish the whole 20 minutes, I can give you the speech that got me to the world stage. So I'll start by, I would love to tell you a little bit of my journey of how I got to the world stage. So it all started in 2019. I was walking into a McGill University class in Montreal. I was walking into that class for the 3rd time this time. I'd given up on finishing university twice already, but this time something was different. The reason being is because a couple years before that, I was diagnosed with an incurable condition that would slowly take away my eyesight. And the last time I was in a classroom, I was taking a math exam, and I just kept erasing and rewriting and erasing. And I didn't know what I was doing anymore because I couldn't see what I was writing. So I decided to drop my pencil, and I told myself, I'm quitting. I just felt so discouraged. But at that time, when I came back in 2019, something was different. I walked in with determination in my heart and a white cane in my hand, because I'd done 3 years of vision rehabilitation, and I was ready to take a chance. I was ready to challenge myself, to take up a new challenge in my life. And it's in that very course that during the end of the course, when I gave a final presentation in class, that my professor came up to me. His name was Brendan. And he said, Mariam, have you ever thought of taking up public speaking? I mean, I see you becoming a great speaker. And I thought, well, yeah, Brendan, like that's a dream, but that's just a dream. I mean, how can I become a speaker? And what would I even say? I don't even know what to say. I don't have experience. I don't have skills. I don't have the knowledge. What value can I possibly give people? And he said, well, it's very simple. You just talk about your story. You know it, it's in you. You have a story to tell, and that story can impact the world. And he said, believe it, and you will see it. Then he offered me to speak for his course. And I said yes. So from that time on, I started speaking for Brendan's class at McGill University. And every single class he gives, I always follow him, and I'm still speaking for his class all the time. Since then, I've developed my story. I started giving it to different audiences. And he kept telling me the same advice. He kept telling me, Mariam, just give your story. You know your story. Keep practicing it. Keep refining it until you master that story. Eventually, in one of his courses, somebody came up to me and said, hey, have you ever heard of Toastmasters? I said, no, what is that? And she said, I totally see you in there. So I took her recommendation and joined Toastmasters in November of 2021. Now, when I joined Toastmasters, the person who welcomed me happened to be the founder of that club. His name, Scott McLaughlin. He quickly became my mentor. And what Scott did is that he recommended me to start competing right after he heard my story. He said, have you ever thought of competing on the world stage? I mean, I know you can get there. I have a feeling that your story can impact the world. Believe it, and you will see it. And I said, oh, do they know each other? So I thought, okay, I'll take that challenge. So I used that same story from the club level, started rehearsing it, practicing it, getting feedback, refining it, until that same story took me from the club level all the way to the world stage. And this year in August, I actually finished third with my second speech called You Have No Idea. First one was called The Straw. And I used a simple straw to create an impactful message. Now, I learned one really, really important lesson throughout this entire journey. I learned that to become an impactful speaker and to speak with impact, you don't have to have the best skills, the most refined skills. You don't have to be the most seasoned speaker, have the most experience. All you need is a story, your story. But if you're anything like me, you've probably wondered, well, I don't know, I don't have any more stories to tell, or my story is way too ordinary, it's too simple, I don't think it would do anything for the world. But the truth of the matter is that any minor thing, any ordinary moment can turn into an extraordinary story. It could be as simple and as straightforward as a walk in the park, literally. It could be a fleeting moment that you had with a butterfly, or something that you witnessed, or a conversation that you had with a stranger. That moment can turn into a big message. The most important is knowing how to communicate that story, knowing how to turn that story and to make it impactful. So I put together 3 key elements that really helped me. And they're not technical, but I believe, and from everything I've learned from all the coaches that I worked with, world-class coaches, I believe these are elements that are important. They're key elements in knowing how to create a meaningful story and how to deliver it with impact. Number 1 is authenticity. Now, I want to tell you a little anecdote. On the world stage, perhaps it was also nerves, but everybody kept telling me, Mariam, be yourself. And actually at the district level, right before I stepped on stage, there's a lady who looked at me and said, she was sitting right beside me. And she said, Mariam, I just want to give you one advice. Be yourself. She said, I saw you speaking. I heard you speaking before virtually, and it put tears in my eyes. And what I really liked about you is that you were so authentic. So I said, you know what? That's the best advice I've ever gotten. And I took that to the world stage. And while I was telling my jokes to the audience and delivering my humor, I was laughing at my own jokes with the audience. I was having so much fun. And I thought, that is who I truly am as a person. I like to be bubbly, I'm spontaneous, so why not just show it? And we often learn to be extremely polished. That's okay, that's totally fine, that's very important. But there's a difference, in my opinion, between being polished and being programmed. So don't be polished, but don't be programmed. Don't be too rehearsed. That would be an advice, something that I learned. There's also something that I really love that my coach told me. And he said, Mariam, who you are on that stage will shine brighter than what you actually say. Who you are means so much more than what comes out of your mouth, because people can feel it. They want to connect with a real human. They want somebody to be real, and they will know if you're not being genuine and if you're being over rehearsed. So that's a huge lesson I learned. And also that's, I think Craig Valentine said that, Darren LaCroix, if you know them, they're world champions from the past years. And they always say, don't deliver a speech, don't deliver a presentation, create an experience. And that leads me to my next point, which is vulnerability and emotion. That's a huge one in my opinion, because I was told, Mariam, you should, connect with your audience more, show them how you felt. When I got my diagnosis and my first speech, when the doctor told me you're going blind, show us how you felt. And I thought, well, how do you do that? And Darren LaCroix told me there are ways for you to portray emotion without even speaking. We can see it on your face. You can take long pauses. You lower your voice. But he said, we need you to take us on that journey. We need to feel what you felt in that moment. One of the most powerful tools they taught me, the coaches that I worked with, to use is internal dialogue. He said, when you tell us what was going on in your head at that very moment, we automatically connect with you, because everybody wants to know, well, I wonder what she was feeling. I wonder what they were thinking at that moment. So relive the moment and take your audience with you on that roller coaster. Take them through the highs and through the lows, and use what my mentor showed me. He showed me a beautiful article that spoke about the brain, how the brain works, and how our brain automatically responds in an emotional way. And he showed me that if you don't need to use all of them, but some of the most basic human emotions, there are 6 of them: anger, fear, surprise, disgust, and there were 2 other ones, but they're sadness and happiness. Those are the 6 basic human emotions. If you use a couple of those, you are sure to win hearts of the audience. But going back to taking the audience on your journey with you, I remember Darren telling me it's called VAX. We want to know what you saw in that moment. For me, I mean, I didn't really see much because I'm legally blind, but what did you see? What did you feel? What did you smell? Where were you sitting? Did you have a coffee? When you talk about smells, people automatically associate memories and emotions to that. And so that is a very powerful way. And often we believe that being vulnerable or showing vulnerability is a weakness, but it's actually a superpower when it comes to speaking, because that's when you draw your audience in. That's when you show them how you truly felt, how you were affected, and they will connect with you automatically. So show your emotions. Another point that I learned, and that's a comedian who told me that. He said, tell your story like you're telling it for the first time. I said, but how? I rehearsed so many times. I practiced over and over and over again. I gave my speech so many times to so many different clubs that at the end, people were telling me, Mariam, we don't feel anything. I didn't feel anything. I'm supposed to cry. This is a huge diagnosis. This is huge. This is a big deal. I didn't feel any emotions. And I thought, how come? So I started becoming a little too automatic. And what I did, that little trick that I'm going to share with you, really worked with me. I did that with the comedian. So he sat down with me and he said, okay, I'm going to interview you. And he asked me questions that are extremely deep of what I went through in that exact moment. He helped me relive the moment of my diagnosis. He asked me, what were you doing? What were you saying? What did the doctor say? Did you call your parents? Who did you call? What did you tell your mom? And new things started to come up from my own story that I had forgotten about. And as I was reliving them, I felt that sadness. I felt the old Miriam who was vulnerable and sad about that diagnosis. So I was able to reconnect with my story, and that gave me a new perspective on it. And when I delivered it again on the semifinal stage, the emotions came out and automatically I connected with the audience. Now I'm going to go to my third point, and that I think is the most important one. I had a conversation with another world champion, Alexander Matt, who's also from Montreal. He shared that transformation is probably the most important part of your story, because that's where you, your character, as you're the hero of the story, go from point A to point B. That's when there's the before and the after. That's the path that you create for the audience to follow. What are you going to leave the audience with? How do you want them to feel, think, or what do you want them to do after? What action did you take that was different, that made you transform? The transformation is where the magic happens in a story. That is the culminating moment of the story where people, that's where the aha moment happens. That's the most powerful moment. And so that is where I realized, and I also learned to spend more time, to take my time, to take the pauses, to truly get into that moment and connect with my audience. And I even got closer on stage to talk to the audience and to make it feel more personable. Now, I'd like to share with you another point. And this one comes from a great speaker. Her name is Patricia Fripp. She always says, your last words linger. Now, that is so true, because whatever you say at the very end, people will walk away with, because they say that something like 50% of the speech of what you gave is forgotten by 24 to 48 hours. People only stay with how they felt, how you made them feel, and your last words. So I learned to make sure that my last words had impact, had power, and that's where the message is. So this is where that simple idea, the encounter with the butterfly, turns into a big message, just like I did with the straw. I mean, I was talking about a household item. It's just a straw, and it's about looking through a straw. And on my world speech, it was a basic sentence that my father would repeat to me. You have no idea. That turned into a bigger message that is on an international level, that was addressed for the whole world. So the last words linger. Mark Brown shared something with me, and he said, Miriam, God forbid, if this was your last day, what would you want to share with the world? What do you want to leave the world with? What would be the last thing you'd ever share? Choose wisely. And I think that really helped me tighten the speech, because the toughest part for me was tightening the speech. I mean, I started with pages and pages with 3,000 words, and that was just weeks before the final speech, and I had to bring it down to 650. So I needed to know that every word had to have an impact, and my last words had to have an impact, because the last words linger. Now, on that, I'd like to remind you that you have a story to tell, that your story is impactful way beyond your imagination, that if you keep practicing your story, that if you keep working, that if you keep receiving feedback, that if you keep saying it over and over and over again, you'll be pleasantly surprised that by the end you'll have mastered it. And who knows, maybe you're going to be the next world champion, and maybe your story will bring you all the way to the world championship stage. Thank you.
VA hospital. Mute my audio.
And one of the things that she shared, she has time for questions. I think she'll answer some of those questions. So maybe we'll see if we have some questions from the audience on suggestions from her. Don't see all the audience, but can
Audio.
we see all the members and see if there's some hands there? Okay,
Judy and
just speak up
Greg
if you have a question.
Judy and Greg have their hands up.
Judy and Greg have their hand up.
Mute my audio.
There's so much information there. I'm sure that questions will occur to people later on, but
Tom, I had a question.
okay. Yeah, is that Greg?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Marion, again, wonderful presentation of knowledge and experience you shared with us today. You brightened our lives by giving what you shared here, and I appreciate you. I know you went through volumes of pages for your speech. For our viewers that might consider competing, did you examine the judges' ballot at all and pull anything that you might share with us
Yes.
from the ballots?
Thank you so much for that question. I wanted to mention it. Actually, I did, but I was getting conflicting advice. So that is an advice on itself, not to take too much conflicting advice from too many people. But some people said, don't look at the judge's ballot too much because then you're going to become too robotic and you're going to want to cater to it too much. Other people said, study it to the T and know exactly what they know you want. Now, if I had to do it again, I would study it a lot more. I did go through it. There was one point that Linda Marie Miller, I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's finished second at some point. She shared it with me and she said, it's something that's very subtle on the judge's ballot, but that seems to be a common aspect that they look at throughout every single speaker, and every single world champion has that. It's what the speaker demonstrates that is not said into words. It's very vague, but it basically means what are you projecting as a speaker? So I thought this to me is sort of authenticity. They want someone who's authentic in their delivery, in their speech delivery. The other thing that I would have done differently is to look at the aspect of delivery, the aspect of inflections, of gestures, of mannerisms, expressions, vocal variety, and use of the stage. I found that those are very important points for the judges, that they take them very seriously. And when we looked at them later on, when we did a recap of everything with my coaches, we realized that this is what was different between the third, second, and first place. So really, at that level, it all goes down to not just content, but the gestures, the use of your voice, the movement on stage, to really exaggerate it, yet try to make it look natural. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I agree with what you said, and just a thought for you. How powerful was the message and how you use those different things that you shared with us and to make that? I can tell you from judge number one that you were rated high on my ballot.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And you're talking about the world speech?
I was talking about the world champion of public speaking.
Yeah.
Mary, I have a quick question, and you can tell me. I know that the last couple of years, because of COVID, there are some options about whether you do it on Zoom or whether you do it in person.
Yeah.
How did you do yours?
I did it
and what are your feelings about options?
Yeah, I did it absolutely. If I have a choice for every single presentation, I would any day do it in person, because to me, audience connection is number one. I love being with people, connecting with people, especially if I can't see them, and I can't feel their energy. That wouldn't work for me. So I really wanted to be there, but I know for sure that next year they already decided that they're only going to do it in person. It's not going to be virtual. So that will give a better camera angle, because what they did this year and previous years post-COVID is that they gave a wide angle view of the stage. So we looked kind of miniature on stage, whereas the other years you could really see people moving and different angles of their faces. So that's probably what's going to happen next year.
I just want to tell you, there's one thing that I got out of your speech that I don't think probably was your intention, and that is the fact that you joined just shortly ago, not very many years ago, and there was someone there that encouraged you.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that I think members of all of our Toastmaster clubs and all of our audience here can take away from this particular meeting. And who knows, when that person walks in the door of your club, if you encourage them, you just might be encouraging someone that goes on to become a world champion.
Absolutely.
And so treat each and every one of those guests, even though they might surprise you. When I walked in my first meeting, no one ever would have thought I would have ever won a contest anywhere. Laura has a question. Laura's from 797. Oh, okay. Okay, Judy, next.
Yes, thank you, Tom. And thank you, Miriam, for sharing your light. It was powerful. My question to you is, like, you won at the semifinal that got you to compete in the finals. So did you have to change your speech? Because my understanding was you had to come in with a totally different speech, right?
Yes.
You changed your story dramatically. I mean, how were you able to use your vision when you lost it? Was that your original speech, or was that your the final speech?
Yeah, I know this is confusing even for us who made it to the semifinals and found out, didn't even know how things were working, because it was my first time competing ever. Yes, I did join in 2021. I only started competing last year because I didn't have my 2 levels. But the first speech, which got me all the way through the district to the semifinals and past the semifinals, is called the straw. And I used this exact straw and distributed a couple of them afterwards. And after that, we needed to come up with a completely different speech. And the rule book said substantially different. So it doesn't give you a percentage or anything. It just says it has to be substantially different. And you need to fill out an outline of your first speech, which is the semifinals. There is one judge who is assigned to be a content judge, and all that judge does is just look at your outline of your first speech and compare with your new speech and make sure that it's substantially different. So they have to be complete different stories. I know many have used similar techniques, similar approaches, somewhat similar sentences here and there. Maybe the words are a little bit similar, but the whole story in itself is completely different. My second one, which was the world speech, I called it "You Have No Idea," and it was about my relationship with my father. And that I wrote 2 weeks before because I didn't have a speech. I didn't think I would make it through.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. If someone doesn't let me know about any other questions, I don't necessarily always see the hands and so as if there are no other questions, I will leave you with something that Miriam didn't tell me to say, and that is that she said that she might be willing to visit some of your clubs. If you contact me, I will pass the information along to her, and she may just come all the way across the country to speak to one of your clubs. So I'll let you guys work out the details, but if you're interested, contact me and I will make sure she gets that information. Thank you again, Marianne. We so much appreciate your being here, and hopefully we'll have produced somebody in District 12 that beats you next year. No, we don't want to say that. Hopefully we will produce some speakers that have improved their technique based on what suggestions you might have given them. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here again. And thank you for staying up for us.
Oh, good. I'm always.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Okay. Our next speaker is one of our qualified speakers. Has been a qualified speaker for a while in this district, and I will I will get his information out here. Let's see if I can take care of that without going blind here. I have some small print, but I have. Oh, here we go. I want to make sure I get this correct. I'm not going to steal his thunder by saying things that I know I would want to say if I did not have any idea what to say. You have some thunder, there's for sure. Michael Olson is devoted to inspiring people to grow and overcome addiction and the obstacles they believe they face in their lives. Addiction can shatter lives, leaving behind a trail of destruction and broken dreams. From the smoldering ruins and darkest corners of despair, a journey of redemption can arise, a path that leads to triumphant recovery and newfound success. Mr. Olson lays bare his own battle with addiction, a battle that nearly consumed him and wrecked his family and career. He shares his journey to recovery and success, offering blueprints for those seeking to break free of the chains of addiction. You will hear the remarkable transformation that is possible when one dares to confront their demons. Find inspiration and learn to forge an unwavering belief that you too can create a brighter, stronger future, rich in success and meaningful relationships. He's a member of Toastmasters for the last 8 years and been a qualified speaker for a good portion of that time. Our next speaker, Michael Olson.
Thank you, Tom. Before I get started, we're going to go through a little bit of text setup. In fact, I would like to have all of you give Connie Jameson a round of applause. She's going to serve as my PowerPoint presentation remote control. Hey, Connie, I think we might have a new career for you. Let me also say, I want to thank you for giving me the invite to come here. I am really enjoying the weather. It is much nicer here than it is in Denver, Colorado. In fact, I had to change all of my travel plans. I had planned to drive down here, but last weekend we got a foot of snow. And that's in the low-lying areas. I can't imagine what it was up in the mountains. So I changed all my plans and I flew down here today. I see that we still have Rob working on here. Oh, there we go. Now, it's better to see this than it is to see my homely face that I have here, but at least we'll get a chance to share some information with you. Okay, I'm ready to begin now. See, I know that you guys down here are spoiled with the weather, but those of us like Miriam and I who are in the colder climes, we'll have a much nicer time doing this little exercise. I want you to think back to a perfect spring day. Those crystal blue skies, perfect temperature. And it was going to be a fun day, a Saturday, a number of years ago, and I was supposed to be taking my daughter to her softball game. But I never made it to that softball game. In fact, I was never able to make it to another softball game, or to show up at home and have my girls jump into my arms. The reason is because I had allowed addiction to destroy my life, and destroy my family. Connie, the next slide. I can remember saying this phrase to myself a number of times. I want to stop destroying my life and my family, but I just don't know how. When I finish with this speech, I hope that you'll all believe that I now know how. And I'm bringing the speech to you so that you can also know how. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Toastmasters. I am so happy that I can be here. But what we're going to talk about is something Miriam mentioned, transformation. Connie? Transformation is one of those words that we really feel good about, because we automatically assume that the ugly caterpillar is going to burst forth from the cocoon and become a beautiful butterfly. However, I want you to think about something. On that day, I turned into the ugly caterpillar. See, transformation just means to change. It can be a change for the good, or it can be something that is bad and destructive. What we need is a way to make that transformation happen one way and not the other. So let me begin to share with you a little information about how to make that change happen. Connie? Could you back up just a little bit? Can you try to back up, Connie? One more. I think we're still going forward. I think we need to go backwards. Okay. Here's step one. Here's an important word for you. Acceptance. This is where I had to start. But I want you to understand, I tried 12-step programs. I tried therapy. Both of them failed. And one of the reasons I think the 12-step failed is the first part of what they say in the 12 steps is we had to accept the fact that we were powerless in the face of the addiction that was destroying our lives. That's wrong. That's just not how it should be. I think that we have somebody here that would agree with me. We were made in the image of God. So we have all the power to make that change. It's in us. We should not be kneeling down and saying, I have no control over this. I do not have the power to change. No. You have the power. Just have to decide to do it. The reason step one is because. Be the cause of the change in your life to become better. There's a concept in neurolinguistic programming where it's talking about cause. We are the cause of everything that has turned out in our life. Now, we may not have instigated it. However, how you respond to what has happened in your life will dictate the results that you get. Two people experience the same trauma. One turns and goes and becomes a success. The other wallows in pity, in self-doubt, and self-destruction. Why? One is a cause, the other one is a victim. Be a cause, not a victim. Now, before I go further into my list, there is something that I need to address. Connie? Paradigm. Now, those of you who don't know me, don't understand, there are two words in the English language that I love: paradigm and paradox. Unfortunately, I didn't get to put paradox in here, but at least I could put paradigm. The reason we need to talk about this is there is a particular paradigm surrounding addiction that I must try to end. And here's what it is. Addiction is not about the substance. It's not about drugs. It's not about alcohol. Addiction is a symptom. It's just a symptom based on the root cause. Connie? The root cause is mental illness. Why did somebody start to use drugs? Because they couldn't handle the way their life was. Why does somebody become a problem drinker? Because they can't handle the pain that they're suffering in their lives. There are many other kinds of addictions: gambling addiction, sex addiction, social media addiction. There are no substances in those, and yet those are addictions too. Why? Because people are in pain and they don't know how to deal with it. Remember that statement? I don't know how to change it. They don't know how to change this either. So this is something that the program I was designing to help people overcome their addictions is to deal with this. Now, that still left me, when I was dealing with this, having a spark of hope of change, but it was still a small spark. At the time, my faith was a little weak, so I didn't have that same strength of conviction. But the next step that I'm going to show you comes in the form of a slap upside the head by a strange friend called inspiration. Connie? Step 2 is the anvil. This is where I learned to build a forge. But next one, Connie. Let me tell you how I came to this inspiration of using a forge. At the time, I was spending 6 years in prison because of my addiction and the crime that I committed to try and deal with that addiction. And I was sitting in this prison wearing my ugly orange pajamas. And somebody turned on the TV to a motivational speaker. Now, I'm sure all of you have heard motivational speakers like this. He was talking about, it was centered around sports. He was talking about if you want to be a champion, you have to grind every day. Don't ever stop grinding and grinding. I had a very interesting reaction to this particular motivational speech. I was mad. I was livid. And I'll try to explain here why I was mad at somebody who was trying to motivate me to be better. See, I was sitting in prison. I had just destroyed my life. The last thing I wanted to hear was that I needed to grind even more after I'd just ground my life into the dust. Honey, go to the next slide, please. First, let's understand what grinding is. Grinding is a destructive process. It's ripping away shards of material from a source using intense friction. I'm going to suggest maybe you go home after this meeting and you go into your garage and you grab yourself a sheet of coarse sandpaper and rub it up and down your arm. Maybe not. Or maybe try rubbing it on your cheek. Okay, maybe you don't want to do that. But if you were to do that, you would understand it's destructive. It doesn't make your skin better. It doesn't make you feel better. It's a destructive process. Well, that's when inspiration smacked me upside the head. Connie, go to the next. What is inspiration? Some say that it's a message from God that's giving you information. Well, I believe it's the power of God because God gave us this mind, gave us this powerful creation between our ears. Your mind remembers everything that you have ever learned, heard, witnessed, studied, everything. And once in a while, everything comes together. And then your subconscious mind speaks to you. Now, imagination, our subconscious does not speak in words. It speaks in images, moving images, and feelings. And what I got was an image of a medieval forge, complete with swords and armor and the fire and the anvil. All of it came to my mind. Why? What's the difference in that feeling that I got of being at peace? It's because forging is a creative process, not destructive. It's taking raw materials from the earth, heating it, molding it, shaping it, and turning it into whatever you want it to be. We who have suffered an addiction, who have suffered great loss, need a creative process, not a destructive one. Now, I wish that I had more time to go in more detail about the process that I have. Connie, could you go on the next one? But my process is lengthy and there's not nearly enough time here. However, I want you to understand I did not come here just to talk about me, my experiences, or any of this. I came here to talk to you, to share this information with you, and hopefully you will help me get this word out to more people. Tell me more places that I can speak. Perhaps you know someone that is dealing with this issue and needs to hear this message. There's somebody right now that's asking that question, how can I stop destroying my life? I'm hoping that you will help me with that. If you want to, send me a message with your email address, and I'll follow up with you within a couple of days. Let me wrap this up. Connie, could you go to the next one? I can't take back the destruction that I caused to my family and my life. But I have learned to create something new from the ruins of what I did. I came down here, flew all the way from Denver, but I didn't come here to give a speech. Although I'm very grateful that I've been given that opportunity. Thank you very much for that. But I flew all the way down here for one primary reason. So that I could spend a day with my daughter and help her celebrate her 25th birthday. Grasp the hammer of creativity and forge a new future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Let me have my speaking utensil here, and thank you for being here. I appreciate. By the way, he did come here all the way from Colorado, and he will be speaking at Kiwanis Club tomorrow, and he'll be speaking at Saturday Morning Toastmasters on Saturday, and so we appreciate him coming and sharing. And we think he's going to end up joining the debate club, so we'll have him back in the harnesses of Toastmasters. The part that I said I didn't want to steal his thunder, and he alluded to it a little bit, but didn't really let it all out, and that was, I first heard about Michael. I got a call from someone who said that we have somebody who has been in jail, in prison for 7 years out of Chuckwalla, I guess, is one of the two out there. I can't remember the name, which one it was, but out by Blythe. And he wanted to join a Toastmaster club, and is there a club that would welcome him? I knew, of course, of Daryl Zeller. Daryl Zeller worked in the prisons and prison Toastmaster clubs for 22 years, and I don't know whether he's right now doing it, but he's been working with Randy Emolino. They're starting up gavel clubs in the prisons out here near Corona. And so if anyone would like to help volunteer and make a difference in people's lives, this is certainly a good time to inspire that. And for those of you might talk to either me or talk to Daryl Zeller, and I'll get you to talk to Daryl or Randy Emolino, Randy Emolino, Sandy's ex-husband. Anyway, but anyway, the rest of that story was that he had been in prison for 7 years, but he had been exposed to Toastmasters and had a tremendous impact on his life. And when he got out, he belonged, and I hope I got the story right, he belonged to a Toastmaster club, the one that meets on Wednesday night at Habitat for Humanity, for an entire year, paying his dues when he was having a difficult time having a place to be and spending part of that time living in his car. But Toastmasters was more important, and it's made a major difference in his life. And then Toastmasters then, through him, will make a major difference in other people's lives. With that, I'm sure that if someone contacts me and you would like to have Michael come to speak to your club or to a person, to somebody individually, I'm sure he'd be glad to do that. All right, we need to talk a little bit about the December meeting. We were going to do something a little bit different, and if you saw my email that I sent out, we are going to have a speaking competition, they don't allow me to use the word contest since we're not strictly going by Toastmaster rules, but we'll be doing speaking competition. And just to show you, because what COVID has done to us, this is one of the second place winner for Tall Tales last year, Michael Alexander. Will be real trophies, albeit they are recycled by trophies that have been donated by others, but it'll actually have your name on it, just like that one does. And you'll have in that competition, we will have Tall Tales. By the way, the rules for Tall Tales, and people don't hear those a lot, and please give me a call if you need some advice on what to do about it, but you can check with TI for the rules. But it is 3 to 5 minutes, and usually they try to have a surprise and a twist ending. It might be start out with a believable story at the beginning, and it gets a little more crazy and a little more exaggerated, and comes to a twist at the end. And so you try to sit there sometimes trying to figure out what that twist will be at the end. Of course, you all know there is a lot of humor now in international competition, but this is strictly a humorous contest or competition, and we will be having that in December, along with Ralph Dieters, seeking his qualified speaker status. We'll be doing that, so we have a full program again in December. January, we're strongly considering doing a whole themed meeting. We've had some themed meetings in the past, Mother's Day and Father's Day and World Cultural Awareness Day, some big meetings where we had a lot of speakers. We expect to have a program probably dedicated to Toastmasters who've written books to come in and talk a little bit about their books. And so our priority, everyone, please get to me if you're interested in being a part of that program, is not restricted only to qualified speakers, but the order of our choosing of who will participate in the program would be if you're a qualified speaker with a book that you've written, and that probably wouldn't be enough to cover the program. If you're a District 12 Toastmaster who's written a book, or a Toastmaster who's written a book who would like to come and talk about your book. So that'll be the priority. We'll try to make room for as many as possible. And with that, Greg Scott's got a question.
Yeah, Tom.
Greg Scott, have you read the book or have you read a book? No. So, by the way, speaking about reading and writing, Michael Owen came and visited Connie's Readers and Writers Club. So if you're interested in reading and writing books, why contact Connie and she will make sure you're welcome to come and visit. Okay, Greg.
Yeah, Tom, when you talk about next year, of course, we all know next October is the 100th anniversary of Toastmasters International, its birthday. I was wondering maybe a theme meeting might be sharing your history in Toastmasters, the history that what you observed as a Toastmaster, some of the events, some of the mentors, some of the changes in your life that would inspire the rest of us. So the theme might be inspirational history about you or about Toastmasters. And I just thought that I just wanted to throw that as a consideration.
My question.
He's thinking inspiration or what you've observed, but you might tell about how we have 100 years. So we.
Oh, yes. Well, okay. Yeah, we're Connie and I have been in. I've been in 55. I will in January be in my club for 55 years consecutively, uninterrupted. And Connie's been in her club 45 years in Club 815. And you put them together, that's 100. It's the same as the 100-year anniversary of Toastmasters International. So hopefully we'll see whether we outlive the organization or not. The way things are going. Do we have someone? I don't see. Well, do we have someone with any announcements from the district? And let's see. I thought I saw. As Tammy or Frankie, you're probably higher up right now in the district than anybody else that's in the room. Anything particular that needs to be shared?
We will have 2 more contest training opportunities. I don't have the dates and times yet, but that will be in the newsletter. We have a TLI in January. And of course, gearing up for our spring conference on May 4th. Other than that, I don't know anything more right now. I know there's things
We
coming.
know
There's gonna be
the
like
spring
an
contest, the contest will be in person or only on Zoom, or? Do
We
know that
don't
yet?
know yet. We don't know yet. That's part of the
Okay.
problem, is trying to find a venue where we can do that
Sure.
and do hybrid. It's what we're trying. Our goal is to be hybrid.
Mhm. Well, we're hoping that many people sign up. There's a special bargain. I don't know if it was mentioned and I missed it, but special bargain of $100 off if you sign up for the international convention here in Southern California in Anaheim. And so I know I have not been to the last 2 or 3.
I think
at
it's
least,
November, I think
and
it's
I'm
November
going, and hopefully we'll
26th.
have a whole lot of
Yeah,
people in there to
November
support.
26th is the deadline. You still
The
have till
deadline for
November
that 26th of
26th.
November.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. We actually have a person who is a member of our district running for second vice president. So Karen Lucas, and maybe we'll have a total international level celebrity in our midst if she's able to win. She came in close second last year, and hopefully she'll win this year. At that, again, thank our audience members, thank our participants and workers to put this all together, and thank those that have showed up to visit our event. And we hopefully will see you on December the 6th, the day before my birthday. You can all come and celebrate, sing me a happy birthday or something.
All right.
See you all again. Thanks for coming.